It's been a volatile and emotional night in Bangladesh, with anger spilling onto the streets after the death of a young political figure who had become a symbol of last year's violent uprising. Sharif Osman Hadi was a prominent student leader and a key spokesman for the Inqilab Munch, one of the movements that helped drive last year's protests, which ultimately forced Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina from power. He was shot in the head by masked attackers on the streets of Dhaka last Friday. After days in critical condition, he was flown to Singapore but died there last night after 6 days of life support. The moment news of his death reached Bangladesh, protesters poured out onto the streets and crowds stormed the offices of the country's two biggest newspapers, setting fire to the building and trapping journalists inside. Similar demonstrations broke out elsewhere, with emotionally charged chants invoking Mr. Hadi's name and calling for justice. And the timing here is really crucial. Mr. Hadi was preparing to run as an independent candidate in next year's national elections. Polls announced by the interim government for February, and his killing is now fueling fears about political violence ahead of that vote. Now, authorities say suspects have been identified and claim the shooter may have fled to India, comments that have already sparked a diplomatic row between Dhaka and New Delhi. Meanwhile, the interim leader, Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, has called for calm, declared a national day of mourning and promised accountability. But with tensions high, security forces deployed across the capital and political divisions still fresh after last year's upheaval, the next few days will be critical.